want to welcome everybody to the REsimpli Podcast. We have our guest, Jonathan Greene. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking your time to hang out with us and tell us some stuff about real estate investing and agent side. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jonathan.
Yep. So I've been investing for more than 30 years. I grew up with a dad who was an investor as a kind of side hustle, but it was really his main hustle. So from 5 years old on, I was going into foreclosures, unlocking the doors, going to yard sales, making offers on yard sales. And as I got older, I started to manage my dad's properties when I came home from college in the summer, did collections on all the rentals. So I technically owned a lot of properties before most people. When I was like below 10, my dad knew how to maximize tax benefits and trust and stuff like that. So I've been playing with real estate my whole life. And then I'm still an active investor. And now I run a big on-market team of 35 agents in 4 states. And of course, I have, just like you, I have my own podcast called Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And I personally love being on other investing podcasts because I just love helping investors not make the mistakes that I see a lot of people making out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, no. So you talk about being in it from a young age. I definitely, both my kids, I have a 4 and a 7-year-old, and they love it. In the beginning, they were kind of bored. Now, like, Daddy, we're going to walk houses today, or we're going to drive by a house. They understand construction zones and stuff like that. So,
well, it's good for you to know then that when I didn't really get it all when I was younger, but then as I was getting older, 18 to 22, it all started to crystallize. And I was like, all this stuff he's been telling me is now starting to make sense. And I wanted to take action. And now my kids are 21 and 19. My son, who's the oldest, is now like ready. He's ready to start helping with investing. He wants to house hack, and he's also ready to get his license too. So I kind of wait on my kids, and I've always showed them, we've lived in a lot of different houses because I don't like to stand still. Yeah. Fix it up, sell it, move again. But yeah, I think it's important. A lot of people get into it because it is the legacy type business that they're looking for, that they can leave property that is going to churn income to their kids.
Yeah, especially if you understand how to use some of the tax stuff with CISA accounts and different things like that. Your kids can own properties at whatever age and really benefit them, kind of start their future a lot better.
Absolutely.
And so you started, let's say you started managing or helping your dad with collection stuff at 18, that 21, 22. When did you start buying properties on your own?
Around 21. Yeah, I had owned a bunch, and I was fortunate enough that my dad kind of looped me in. So even probably from about 14 on, I knew which properties were in my name with my sister and with my dad. So we would walk those properties. So I started buying directly on my own just in my low 20s. I just bought. So one thing that I've been good at my whole career is something that most people don't talk about. It's just, I'm really good at buying my personal residences. And that's always what I've done. I started buying when I was in Florida because I had gone to Florida to go to law school. So I was 22 or 23 at the time. And I just know how to buy in areas that will appreciate. So I've been basically an appreciation investor more than a cash flow investor my whole life. And I think that the investing world never focuses on personal residences, but I've made huge amounts of money on just buying right, living there for a few years, and then selling and leaving and doing it again. And you can do that as an upgrade. And also you get the personal benefit of enjoying the houses that you live in as well.
Yeah, I do think I've actually talked about it a little bit the last couple of weeks, how people don't look at the personal residence as a form of an investment type thing, strategy, vehicle. But I've had a handful of friends really ride that 3 to 5 year appreciation window and have moved into some really nice areas with nice homes, have either no mortgage or mortgage amounts less than a lot of people living in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. I mean, real estate's all about riding the waves and knowing when to sell, when to buy, what areas are up and coming, which areas are going to gentrify, which areas are going down. And I think studying the markets and watching like where my dad wanted to buy and where I thought was interesting and starting to trust myself helped me. I bought in areas that I thought were really nice. The prices were just better,
Yeah.
And then you turn around and in those days it was like either double my money on some. But the first property I bought was just I bought like a standard single family in a development in Florida where at the time like all of them looked the same. But I bought there was like 7 on the market at the time, and I bought the one that looked the worst, which pretty much was still good. They weren't old houses. It was just like, it just needed everything. I moved in, I painted it, recarpeted, did a few things. I mean, you can't really do much with these townhouses and the HOAs in Florida. And then I lived there for like a year and really liked it. And then I just turned around and sold it. And that one I probably made not a ton. I made like maybe 25, 30 grand. But that's kind of the light bulb moment that was like, oh, all these things that my dad taught me over the years, now it makes sense. I barely did anything, and when I sold, some of those were still on the market because it was just like, it was a weird cycle of time. This was, I don't know, 1996 maybe. And there's just, the stuff just sits on the market. There's plenty of properties. They all look the same. It's just how you can trade them. And then after that, I moved to more non-development type. And that's where I really think is interesting. I love houses. So finding unique houses is kind of exciting to me.
Yeah. And that's, the non-development stuff, the older ranches, the older subdivisions, those houses can have a lot of character and you can do a lot of fun stuff with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you learn along the way what you can get the most for. Sometimes you're presented with an opportunity, especially if you're doing off market, where you're going to be able to make little money. And to me, like, any positive money is good as long as it's not a drain on my life.
Correct. Yeah. Because I've made money and it's drained, and I've made less money with no drain, and I'd rather have that consistently over and over again.
I agree.
And so you bought your personal residence, and then did you grow the investing side? Did you go more agent side? Like, what was kind of where you directed your business?
Yeah, no, I mean, when I started, I again, that was the first one I bought by myself, but I owned a lot of properties at that time, that were part owned with my dad. And then that's later on, maybe 10 years after that, my dad passed away. And then my sister and I turned into full management of the properties that we had already owned anyway. So I had a lot of properties active at a time. Even then at 20, I don't even know. I had a lot of doors to kind of play around with. The ones that I was managing when I would come home from college or at the end of high school were the same doors that we still owned. But I never really was one of those investors that tried to grow my own like personal empire indoors. I never got into multifamily at the time, and I still not. I love it. I love to counsel other investors on it, but it was never my thing. I like living in houses. I like flipping. I've done a lot of flipping, but not ever at scale. Like, I'm someone who can flip, 2 or 4 a year, and I feel like fine with that. And some of them I live in, and I like to, flip at the end, which is I'll live in a house that's nice. But then when I know I'm leaving, I go buy another house, and then I flip the house that I was in. I call it backflipping. And I find that I've already gained the maturation and appreciation from 3 to 5 years. And then I also upgrade the whole house on the way out, which, for people who get emotional about houses, they feel like, oh, I wish I could have lived there when it was that way. But I don't care. I have like no emotional attachment to homes because of how I grew up. We would get the house every way that we wanted, and then my dad would say, we're leaving. Say, why? And then he'd say, well, we're going to make this amount of money because now somebody wants to pay us more. We're going to go do it again. And that's how I grew up on weekends with him. So I understood it as I moved forward.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anybody doing it that direction though, but I can see the benefits of that. And then you probably even get a little bit bigger push because the renovation you're doing is now brand new. Nobody's even lived in it.
That's exactly why. So backflipping is just, I mean, people think of it like, oh, you're living in a bad house. I'm not, but like, I'm not living in a perfect house either. And like you said, if I did the renovation when I moved in, by the time I move, it's going to be 5 years old and there's going to be other stuff wrong. So if you have the leverage to do what I do, which is just leave, buy another house, and then focus on the house and then flip it, you're already ahead. So say at the time, when I lived in Montclair in New Jersey, I bought my house for like $550, I think, in 2013. Lived there for 6 years with my kids, and then I flipped it, but I was already way up. But when I flipped it, I didn't have to spend that much because it was a nice house. I probably spent like over the whole course of the 6 years, I maybe spent a total of 100 grand, which included a sewer renovation. But then it's sold for 883. So you know, over time, you're just getting appreciation. Plus, like you said, you're catching a market, and then the whole house felt brand new. And I didn't do everything. I'm not taking away the character of the home. I'm making smart decisions, you know, on where you can, if you can get a primary suite with an ensuite, you're going to want to do that. You know, if you can upgrade all the bathrooms, fix the kitchen, you know, make more house flow, great. But I didn't even knock down any walls or anything. I just created different types of spaces that I felt at the time were more conducive to like modern buyers.
I like that. I like that. I've never heard of anybody doing that, but I definitely, because we just bought or just moved into a house that we renovated back in August, and already, you know, I'm already in my mind's like, what's next? Because I have no emotional attachment to it at all, and I like the idea of maybe living in it and then, you know, kind of reversing the renovation on the backside.
Well, think of it this way. If you know, I mean, people get too emotionally attached to houses anyway. You're going to leave. I mean, rarely are you going to try to stay in a house for 20, 25 years. That's like a nice thing, you know, just like, you know, storybook relationships are, but that doesn't really always work like that. So to me, houses are assets. I like living them. I appreciate the time in them, but I can go create the same feel somewhere else. You know, and if I can do something smart with the property, that means that I can give the wear and tear on it and know that when I leave, I'm going to already fix everything. So I don't really have to overthink it. And I feel like I'm just ahead. Again, you either have to have the money to go buy the second, or if you've had the good job on the appreciation, you just take a HELOC at the end just to go buy the other one. And then you just cash it out when you sell. And, you know, you have to watch the market cycles too. I mean, I got lucky because I sold that one that we were talking about. Like the pandemic literally was just coming, and like it just happened, and closing took longer. We got worried, like we weren't sure what was going to happen, but it closed. But again, that property that sold for 883, it's probably worth like, you know, 1.3 now, because the market in that town is just insane. So I never get upset that somebody else did well. I love a win-win. I did well. The new buyers who bought from me a renovated product, they're doing well. They're going to sell to somebody else who's doing well. I think too many people just get a little bit insular about real estate and think it's all about them. But, you know, job's to find as many win-win scenarios as possible so you can feel like, okay, everybody's benefit, instead of, you know, fighting about properties. In a state like New Jersey, which is the densest state, there's houses everywhere. Like this isn't the last best house. There's just going to be another one that I see next week that I like just as much.
Yep. 100% agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about the agency side of what you do now. So you said, is it 34 agents?
Yep. Yeah, I have 34 agents in 4 states. Been running this. I've been licensed for about 10 years. This particular team, it's called Streamline Properties on Market. And we've been running this team for almost 3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have like a brokerage, or is it like a team? Because is it
Streamline Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. So I brokerage is eXp. They're an umbrella for me. We kind of run like a mini brokerage. You know, we have all our own systems, all our own backend services, you know, employees and everything on that end. But when I had started this team, we really started by focusing on investors and being the investor friendly agents. That's what people knew me for when they went to Bigger Pockets. So I had a lot of people coming to me for investing advice, and I wanted to make sure that I could then put that in play. New Jersey is a tough state because the taxes are really high, highest taxes per capita in the country. So you have to be a different type of investor. You can't use your standard spreadsheets in New Jersey. I have the same conversation every week. Somebody says, hey, the deal doesn't fit in the calculator. And I said, well, I told you that. That's not how it works in New Jersey. The taxes are too high. You're buying assets. You're buying assets that are going to appreciate. And I have lots of investors who are cash flowing very well. But in a state like New Jersey, especially right now, like you need to be putting 20% down and have like no PMI to be hopeful for cash flow. So that, you know, FHA house hack, very difficult in a state like New Jersey right now, just to be even okay on the money side.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we Yeah, we do everything. We work traditional buyers and sellers. We do probably this year we'll do about 250 deals, but we have a big investor portal. We do meetups under the same name as the podcast. So we have meetups once a week where no pitches, investors just come talk about their deals. We help a lot of investors buy multifamilies and then help them learn to manage it themselves, because we're not advocates of property management, at least not in New Jersey.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about the investor realtor relationship, because I think a lot of people, I know myself, when I first got into real estate investing, it wasn't a relationship I took very seriously. I've since changed my opinion on that in the last couple of years. And we talked about it a little bit before we recorded, about how important you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, tantamount. I mean, and it goes both ways. We were talking about this before. There's terrible investors out there. I mean, unscrupulous, complete BS on the proof of funds. So from an agent side, like, it's hard to trust just a regular investor who you don't know. Going the other way, it's the same though. I mean, most real estate agents are terrible, and the majority, 99%, don't know anything about investing. So I don't blame people for thinking that it's worthless to have a good investment, investor-friendly agent. You will know it when you have one though. And the one that you know is in your corner is the one who's always telling you, no, don't buy that. And that's where I really kind of like earned my keep with people. They called me the deal killer because they would come with me with a deal they were so excited about with another agent. And I'm like, if you want to be friends with me, even, you do this deal, I'm never going to talk to you again. It's a horrendous deal. You're going to lose all your money. And then they would see it through eyes of someone who really wants to help. And I think that's the difference. I don't blame either side, agents or investors, for being leery of each other, because that's warranted. The thing is, the more relationships that you build, it's why we do meetups. We want people to develop those relationships. From an agent side, an investor's your best friend. Just 4 flips a year is 8 deals for you as an agent. You find them a property, you're on the buyer side, then you list it. And then you're always listing flips. So you're listing better than average quality homes, which helps you get more listings. So from an agent side, I tell everybody all the time, we're coaching people. If you just have one really good investor, you can add so much to your deal portal. You could do 12 deals. That's just six flips. For people who do volume, that's not a lot. 4 flips is good for a year, but that's 8 deals. And then on the other side, I just think like we're vetting investors the same way. If an investor doesn't want to show me a proof of funds, I'm not going to go out of the house, because I need to know with the people that I know. I can't risk a relationship that I have by trying to bring someone into a deal who I haven't fully vetted. And I think it's a trust thing. But to your point, you're only going to know when you find it. But finding that agent who really gets you, knows how to run the numbers, and is willing to tell you like, nah, I will tell people flat out, I'm not writing that offer for you. That's stupid. Because I'm not the type of agent. I'm busy. I have a big team. I work a lot of regular on market. I'm not writing lowball offers. We don't write lowball offers. It's just a waste of time in this state. If you can verify if somebody's priced super high and your offer seems like a low ball, and we have a way to explain why it's not, then that's fine. But there's a subset of investors who learn this terrible thing where let me send out 100 offers, all 50% of the price, and just see if someone, whoever's going to take that deal, there's so much wrong with that house. So no chance anyone's taking that deal, especially like the markets are steaming hot now. So I do think it's really important, and I do think that it's something that's really overlooked in the field. Investors in general the public in general thinks real estate agents are, just rotating bobbleheads who open doors. But when you meet the top 1%, you'll get it. And they are hard to find though.
Yeah. And we deal with, I didn't know too much about it. My wife became our agent for our flipping business. It just made sense. But dealing with a lot of the agents we've dealt with on selling them has been some total nightmares.
Yeah.
And then we've had some amazing ones, and now I'm starting to see the difference in what people do and how they work and negotiate. And it's like we have a list of agents that if they put an offer on our flip, we're not working with them anymore. It's not worth.
I have a blacklist. Everybody should. It's just, you should have a blacklist for investors too. People you won't work with. Wholesalers should have a blacklist, and investors should have a blacklist on wholesalers, because that stuff is going to keep coming up. But one thing you said is interesting. You did meet a lot of agents that you're like, ooh, they're good. That's the thing that investors don't understand. If they're working with somebody like me, who I know all the agents and I know how to present an offer and I know how to present an investor, I'm going to win a lot of deals just because of the relationship if we're close on price.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the tiebreaker in that because they know I'm going to close. My clients close. I always vet my clients. I have the proof of funds. I can tell you other deals that they've done. And when you're dealing as a listing agent and you're listing nice properties and some rando comes to you with an investor and they just send you like this hard money letter, that's not going to get anything done. Most agents and even most investors don't understand that there's a big difference between cash, hard money, private money, HELOC. Cash is cash. The other stuff's not cash. Yeah. HELOC's the closest to cash because it's unvetted. It goes into your account. Hard money and private money usually have some form of an appraisal. So that's not cash. Like a mortgage is cash then, and it's not. So they have to understand. And a lot of people are, I was saying before, a lot of real estate on all sides, investing, agent listings is just puffery. People want to look bigger than they are, but it's just, you're not going to get anywhere like that. You're going to be a one-hit wonder, like Kajagoogoo. No offense to them, but.
And what happens is as you build these relationships, it's unique how they continue to kind of help. And so I'll give an example. We bought one from an agent back in August of last year. We flipped it, sold it. And then my dumpster guy called me and said, hey, this guy just evicted a tenant. He's going to sell. I gave him your number. Well, he already had an agent. The agent was somebody that we had already worked with in the past. And so the minute his name and my name came together, he vetted the client. He said, there's no need to put it on the market. These guys will close. Price
exactly
works. And it was done. And we saw no competition from it.
Yeah. And that's what you want. I mean, I don't like competition because I think most of it's kind of BS. It's like if you go say you're doing off market, this is a little side tangent, but that's my specialty. So say you're doing off market, and you show up, you think you have a direct appointment with the seller and you show up and then there's 5 people there. Most people are sitting around trying to fight to get the property. I just leave. I have no interest in it's already too many people. Like I know somebody's going to say something dumb to them and they're going to offer more than I am because I know more. Yeah. But the first thing that I say when everybody's there is I said, well, ask everybody in the room to show you a proof of funds on their phone. And if they do it, 99% aren't going to be able to show them a proof of funds because most are wholesalers and they don't understand that it's wholesalers. I like real investors. I like wholesalers who are ethical wholesalers. I just don't go down with the whole business. Like if someone's there to buy for cash, then show me the money. And if they can't show you the money, they really shouldn't be in the room. And that's just the way that I do it. And it's also the way that I leverage myself to win deals because I'll just open my phone and show them. At least somebody needs to be explained to an unsophisticated seller how wholesaling works to be able to be in that room and to explain, like, I am going to get an extra cut on this. This is why. I'm going to bring people to the table. You don't have to do anything. It's easy to explain good wholesaling. Yeah. You can't hide it. And when you hide it, I think that's, part of the problem with that part of the industry.
I will say in the last couple of years, I have seen more wholesalers be more transparent with homeowners, and it makes everything a lot easier. The showing, the closing, the whole process. If they say, hey, this is what's going to happen, as long as they do what they told the seller they're going to do and everything works out, then, it generally pays off for everybody.
It's because there's a subset of people who finally started to take wholesaling as a business, and business involves client service and accountability to both parties in the transaction. Like you said, if you're a wholesaler, you have a list, like they know you, they're going to say like, hey, Brandon, do you want this property? I'm going to give you, you're going to be on the first list of people to get it. I think what investors don't understand, if you're a baby investor and you get an email from a wholesaler, that's like 4th servings. We've all seen the deal. We've all passed. So you're getting the thing that nobody else wanted because it already went through the VIPs. It doesn't mean it's a terrible deal, but it's not. Nobody else wanted it.
Yeah.
It's like when an investor's looking on the MLS and they send to you as an agent, they're like, oh my gosh, looks great. And I said, it's been on 193 days. It means every single investor in this area has passed on it. Everyone, because they all know 10 agents. So you're saying that you think this is the diamond in the rough that 100 of the best investors in the area have passed on. There's something wrong with it. It's not for you. You're brand new. And that's what I think where the desperation principle of today's investors, because you're on social media, you see everybody with all their alleged, 500 doors, and you get FOMO about doing it. And I do think there is a thing to like get started, but I think people get a little bit too desperate and they make bad decisions. And that's why we look at ourselves as advisors with licenses to help people not make mistakes. Because if you mess up the first deal, you may not be back in investing, 5-6 years. You have to climb out a hole. A lot of people have had to.
Yeah. So for somebody looking to build a relationship with an agent, and let's say they don't have the cash, let's say they don't have, can't pull their app up and show up, but they do have reliable private money or whatever it is. How do they start that relationship with the realtor and start to kind of build something there?
Yeah, one, work on the relationship. And I think the best new investors, I call them baby investors, not because I think they're babies, just because they're getting started. Like they're still learning, how to walk as an investor. The best investors who are new present like what the future is, not in the way that people, I'm going to do 20 deals. Like, yeah, you're not going to do 20 deals. I don't even know you. You haven't done a deal. So I don't know if you're going to do 20 deals. I want someone with a plan and who understands their financing. I interviewed someone on my podcast, Drew Brenneman, great guy. And he had like, as a kid, he did eBay and he was just making like a crap ton of money at like 16. And he found an agent by exactly doing this. He presented himself well. He was clearly young, but he said like, this is my funding. I'm already vetted. This is how much cash I have. These are the types of properties that I'm looking at. And then he found an agent in the beginning who like listened to him, was like, I don't care how old this kid is. He really has it going. And I think that's what you want to build. You can't blame a real estate agent for not wanting to show you 20 houses when you're unvetted. Yeah. Like if you show me houses, we're going to go on a journey together because I love to look at houses. I don't care how many houses we look at, but I want to make sure that I'm taking you into houses that you can prospectively buy, or else it's not fair to the seller. And that's one thing that nobody understands, because they're just thinking about themselves all the time. If I can't confirm that someone can afford a $500,000 multifamily, it's not in anyone's best interest for me to bring them in for a showing, because then the seller is like, oh, how'd the showing go? Oh, turns out they weren't even qualified. And multifamilies are hard to show. There's tenants. You have to be even more respectful of the tenants' time when you're showing multifamilies. So, making sure that people are vetted and then helping them. Like you said, they're brand new. They come to you. You want to work on a cooperative relationship. And I would say that I like people who ask more specific questions when they're new as an investor. Anyone who asks like, how can I be a good investor? It's too broad. I want someone to say like, I've been looking at FHA and 203K. I think I'm okay with doing renovations. And then I can explain what the difference between the two is. But I think you need to come to the table with more than like, hey, I want to do, 10 deals in 10 months, and I want to use hard money. Like hard money right now costs like 15% for a new investor. So that's like not attractive deal for anyone. And I'm not comfortable having someone brand new trying to flip a house on 15% and 2 points right now, because they're not going to make any money.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to move that quick. So
I mean, yeah, but again, correct. But your brand new investor, it always costs twice as much and takes twice as long. So, right. You're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. And again, that's the way, going back to what we said before, that an agent really cares about you is when they're saying like, definitely don't do this deal. The bad reaction from investors is, oh, you're trying to steal this deal. This is the worst deal ever. I don't want it. I just don't want you to lose all your money. And like 2023 is not a great time to be a first-time flipper, because even if you have the money to burn, you're going to burn more of it than you think.
Yeah. And 2023 is also unique because we have inventory going up and prices going up, which is not seen very often.
Yeah, and it's very market specific. There's a lot of people who are looking out of state. That's a whole different landscape. But if you're looking local, you really need to understand where your market's going. If the prices are high, maybe it is a good time to look in the outskirts. I think you have to know basically your 2 hour radius, which is important. I find it really hard to believe that there's not an investment opportunity within 2 hours of where everybody lives, even people in California. 2 hours each way, there's something available, a town that may be on the up and come up. If you keep doing your research, there's going to be something out there. And that's like just drivable enough, but also you can't go there all the time.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. People that go in these crazy virtual spots, there's always something you can get to within a certain radius. Oh,
As a new investor, I think there's nothing more important than being able to see, feel, and touch your property. So being at least in an area where you can see it enough to have a connection to it, not an emotional one, but a connection to this asset that you may turn, because then you're going to know when to sell. A lot of people buy turnkey and then they're just like sitting on, $100, $200 a month returns, but then one furnace breaks and then all of your turnkeys are losing money. If they forget that one thing can go wrong and you can tank a bunch of tiny investments.
Yep. And it's one big thing, and your cash flow's gone for a while, and it can be gone across multiple
years.
houses. Yeah.
It could be. Think about it. Someone who wants to get excited. They have 10 doors. They're all cash flowing just $100 a month, so that's like, that's $1,000, and then a furnace breaks, $7,500 for just like a half multi-family furnace. So that's 7 months that you just lost on 10 investments because you think that $100 a door is okay. But if you know that they're all appreciating, great. But a lot of times if you're buying turnkey, they're turned out to you at their max value, and they're not huge appreciation plays. They're like smaller cash flow plays. So like the taxes can go up, then you get obliterated. So these are just all things to consider. I don't mind turnkey. I think the idea of turnkey is great. I would just rather do it one-off than in like a turnkey funnel.
Let's talk about your podcast a little bit. The Zen of, what is it?
Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing.
Got it. And so what's the big focus on that? I can talk mindset, health, all that stuff till the cows come home. And so what was the reasoning behind creating it?
Yeah, the tagline is the mindful approach to real estate investing for a reason. I feel like there's so much coming at us right now in every part of our lives that new investors, everybody's looking to invest in real estate. They are. But there's so many gurus and things coming at you that the only way to really start to understand is to like first focus on yourself, make sure you're solid going into it. If you have a desperation mindset, you're going to make bad decisions. If you're investing for reasons to try to get, famous on social media, probably not going to go well in the long term. Maybe you'll get lucky. People get lucky, but I've just found that the more centered I am as a person, the better investment decisions I make. And the more I am able to say no to deals. It's exciting when you're investing first time, second time, third time, when you see a property that you love, but you have to be able to set your limit. And that's all part of the mindful approach. Walking away is your best negotiation strategy in the history of real estate investing. Everybody knows this. If you're willing to walk away from the table, you have leverage. And too many people fail by not acting on their leverage and giving the other party leverage. And then, you're always going to get stuck with a deal that you could have done better on. But you have to be willing to lose some deals along the way. And sometimes those will be good deals. I've lost plenty of good deals that I wish I would have done, but I don't go back and feel bad about it. It was just the way that I negotiated.
Yeah, it's setting limits, understanding your buy boxes, your criteria, your cash flow. There's so many things that go into buying an asset other than just does this one deal, work outside of itself.
Yeah. And another part of the mindful approach to real estate for investing for me is outside of, spreadsheets. I don't use spreadsheets. I use them on flips just to calculate how much we're spending and estimations. But like, I do not put any properties through a spreadsheet. Sorry, commercial assets, 5 units and up will go into a spreadsheet because that's a cap rate that I want to see. But in general, that's not what I rely on. To me, I'm buying assets. Like our 2023 term is asset hunting. And that's what I'm looking for. I want assets, and assets don't have to cash flow right away. There can be a variety of things that go on. I'm looking for something that makes sense to me, that I can look at. I'm proud to own this. This has, a part in my portfolio, which is why I like diversification of a portfolio. And that's also a mindful approach. It's easy to say like, oh, I'm just going to do, I'm just going to do the burr strategy, or I'm just going to focus on, this. But there's so many investment opportunities out there that it's great to widen your view a little bit, see what syndications are about. Take a peek at self-storage, just start to understand that there's other things, because you may be a really bad landlord. Most people suck as landlords. It may not be for you. So for someone who doesn't like people, doesn't like to management, like, you shouldn't have Airbnbs. Like, you're going to suck at it. You're going to be annoyed all the time, and you're not going to want to do it. Then you're going to pay someone, 25% to manage for you, when you could have just got another asset that you don't have to pay management for. So I think, like, the holistic approach is understanding that there's all different types of investments. The more relationships that you build, the more podcasts that you listen to about investing open up so many different, worlds. Just, you have me on as a guest. When I have people on as a guest, I'm learning something on every episode. And then I'm like, wow, I never thought of that. Like, I've learned so much about syndication just from having guests on my podcast. And, for new investors, podcasts are everything, because you don't have to listen to everyone. You can look at the topic, see if that person, and then go, oh, this is right up my alley.
Yeah. And you can listen to specific people. And then as you find somebody, you can follow them on some others and learn. There's so much knowledge out there for different asset classes, different investing strategies. You don't have to get stuck with, I only have to wholesale single family homes in the beginning to get started.
I think I've seen a lot of posts that 2023 is a great education year, just because prices are high, like we said. Like, dig in, go to meetups, get on in Zoom groups. I'm not a big fan of Facebook groups, because I think they all just, turn into just a deluge of people just spamming their own garbage. But there are some good ones. Local Facebook groups are much better. Meet other investors who do what you do. The reason that we do meetups is because I can say, have someone who's looking for their first house hack, and then they come to a meetup, and I'm like, here's 5 people standing here who've done their first house hack. Talk to them. Don't talk to me. I haven't done a house hack. I know everything about it, but, like, why don't you talk to these other investors who've done a house hack? What are the pros and cons? Where did they go right? Where did they go wrong? Do they like management? And I think, like, again, I like social media. I like podcasts. I like training programs, but they're not all good. And over time, you have to try a lot of stuff to see who you can trust. If you're going to listen over time, can you trust it? And I think you have to, put the work in to see if that's a person you can trust.
Yeah. And you've kind of touched on a little bit. It's putting in the work, when it comes to creating the relationship with your agent, when it comes into understanding your asset class. You just don't say, hey, I listened to this podcast, I'm now going to go buy a 100-unit apartment building, and that's it. You have to do your research, talk to people, do some site visits, get in where you can get in, so that you can start to understand and learn about whatever it is you're trying to learn about.
Yeah, you just said something really important. It was in site visits. One thing that baby investors are making the biggest mistakes is they're running deals on a computer or calculator, or doing out of state, and they're not looking at anything. Even if you want to invest out of state, go look in state. You need to know what properties smell like, what they look like, what they feel like, what it feels like when your feet are on laminate floors versus LVP versus hardwood. You have to understand what renovations cost, or you're never going to be good at that investing. And that's very, very difficult. And the only way you can do it is if you're not licensed, with an investor-friendly agent who you have a relationship with, who likes looking at homes also. They have to be an investor also. Because guess what? Most properties aren't going to be for you, but they may have other clients for it afterwards. But you have to look at homes. Like, it's crazy to me that someone would make an offer on their first investment property if they haven't looked at at least 15 to 25 homes. And that, again, that is a hard spot, because some agents aren't going to want to do that. That's why you have to build the relationship to know that, like, I'm going to try to help this person get educated. If it turns out they don't want to do this, I'm going to see a bunch of properties that maybe I have other investors for if they're not interested. And that's how you develop it. But I found just way too many people, doing armchair quarterback, running numbers and not seeing properties. Like, you have to see properties to understand what it means when they're sloping floors. How much does a structural renovation cost? Can you move a wall? Can you do that here? These things you're not going to know from afar. And of course, an agent who just wants to sell you a deal is going to tell you everything that you want to know from 1,000 miles away. Oh, sure, there's no structural issues. Are you doing a sewer inspection on every property that you buy? You should be, because sewers are going to cost you a lot. Even if you're in a public sewer, just the line from the house to the street in my area costs 15 grand if you have to replace it. And we have old clay pipes. Are you checking for oil tanks if you're in those areas? These are things that, like, new investors with bad agents are going to buy properties. If you're in a non-attorney state and nobody's protecting you, you're going to end up with something. You're going to dig some stuff up, find a sewer hazard. We were talking about a furnace. What if your sewer breaks?
Oh, it's
bad.
We learned a hard way in a new city.
Me too.
We learned a hard way in a new city that they had these things called Orangeburg pipes, and they were these clay pipes.
Yeah.
And went 4 for 4. All 4 homes need to have new.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. And luckily 2 of them we knew about. So we had budgeted them, but then 2 we didn't know about. And then we found out that pretty much the entire city is full of those pipes. So now if I buy in that city, it comes with a sewer inspection, period.
Always. But think about, so this is what is crazy for investors. Like, I'll say, like, hey, if we're looking in more rural areas and they have septic, is different. Septic right now, we did a septic on my flip. It was 42 grand for just a full redo of a septic. We had other quotes at other properties for 60 and 80 grand. There's investors who you say, hey, look, it's septic. You need to do, we need to do a septic inspection. They're like, no, it says as is, like, I just want to get it. And you're like, it could be like 80 grand.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to protect you again, which is why I do it this way. And I will not write those offers because I don't want my name on somebody's bad offer because I'm responsible for it. And I think, like, on all sides, you have to look at it that way. That's like a more holistic approach. Are we all in this together? And maybe, like, please don't be desperate. This isn't the time to be desperate. Because do you feel like, though, when you bought those 4, were you like, you didn't know, and then you were like, maybe we shouldn't have got all 4? You figured it out, but, like, sometimes you want to get stuff because, like, it all makes sense, but you're too excited. You miss a couple of the little things that could come back to haunt you.
One of them we did. The 2 that we knew about, one of them, they had it all dug up from the backyard, and so we knew it was sewer. And then another one, we actually had them escrow because we asked about it during the inspection and everything, and they were like, no, it's all fixed, it's blah blah blah. And I was like, I don't believe any of this. And so I was like, I'm fine to close it, but you guys need to escrow $10,000, and then whatever the bill comes back, we'll take the bill out, and then you have the rest. And so we did okay. But one of those, we were in a mode where we kind of sold everything and we're looking to move on a property, and we did well in the area, and just And
but
so
that's why it's good if you're able to leverage properties and you're clustering, which is buying near each other. You can withstand. It's like it's a difference between buying a 4-family and a 2-family. You're more protected on the 4-family because if one unit needs a big renovation, you still have 3 cash flowing units.
Yeah.
So if you're buying 3 or 4 properties in an area, you have a hedge against something making a bad decision or uncovering something crazy. But everybody should be doing the max due diligence if they're not experienced. And, like, if you're a brand new investor and you're working with a real estate agent who tells you to buy a property as is, you should fire them because you're brand new. You have no reason to buy something as is. And if your reason is, well, I can't win unless I do, that doesn't mean it's going to cost you any less later. Like, we're trying to protect you in the beginning. Like, do not buy as is. If you're a first time investor, it will come back to haunt you.
And to add to that, if you do get in a spot, let's say it's even after due diligence or whatever, it's much better to lose the earnest money than it is to lose on the deal. It's
a great point. Yeah. If you do it the right way, you're able to negotiate. I've had a couple where I wasn't sure. I never should have dropped some deals, but, like, I was, like, over worrying about it in the middle. And I wanted to get out, so I just called. I was the agent for myself at the time. Or no, this was off market property. I just called the seller and was like, listen, I'm gonna ditch this. Can we just negotiate? I had probably like 15 grand earnest. I said, can I just leave you 5 grand and we'll call it a day? And he said, yeah, no problem. He was another investor. I was like, I'm really sorry. I was thinking at the time I was going to move, so I really didn't want to hold the property. So, I was transparent and it worked out. But it's a great point that you made. You're like, losing earnest money. Okay. I mean, you made a bad decision, but you're not trying to take the whole albatross later.
Yeah.
It's the same when if you're flipping and you get to the end and you're going to make zero, or you're going to lose a little, that's just the way it goes. You still get back the deposit, so you have your down payment to go put into something else. But like, you can't turn a loss into a win by magic. If you spent too much money and that's what the current value is, like, you either need to rent it and hope that it's going to go back up, or you just need to bite the bullet and go try again and take the experience that you did on that one, not get too upset about it, which again is just another mindful principle to try to keep more centered as an investor.
Yep. We had one same neighborhood with all the sewer lines. We contracted it and did our inspection. Our GC basically was like, dude, this house is riddled with active termites. And he started pulling up some rugs and you could see where the hardwoods were eaten out. And so we called the agent. They didn't disclose it. And so we ended up backing out. We negotiated where we didn't lose any earnest money. And then somebody I know bought it. And I tried to tell him before, I was like, dude, please, you need to inspect this house before you buy it. And now they're stuck on it. They had to turn it into a rental. And there's nothing they can do about it. And so you just have to be okay. I mean, obviously you don't want to lose a bunch of earnest money deposits, just wasting your time. But if it's in your gut or if something comes up, big stuff, rewiring homes, sewer lines, septic tanks, man, those things can break you and ruin it.
Yeah, I think you do have to trust your gut, and I've trusted my gut, and I still now I probably shouldn't have gone out of a couple deals, but you can't feel bad about that because I'd rather trust myself than be stuck with a property that I don't want later.
Yep. No, and that's because it's rehabbing a property that you're going to lose money on is, there's nothing fun. It takes a lot of the fun out of it. Even if you have to keep it as a rental, you're still going to leave a bunch of cash in it, which is better than losing it, but you may not have that cash to leave at that moment.
I mean, if you don't know your rehab costs, you're a quarter of the way in, you've already spent your rehab costs, and then you're stuck. So you're either going to get foreclosed on, or you're going to do like the worst job ever, and it's going to sell for way less than you ever thought. Probably won't even sell because you didn't do a good flip when it's supposed to be a flip,
Yep. It's something that, as newer investors, it goes back to the Instagram, the stuff, the desperation with it. And the key is just, trust it. And I like the idea of building in agent relationships. I think I've done a good job with it in my market, and how my mind changed has helped us a ton. So and have advocates, have deal killers that are there to give you opinions.
I think that both sides, investors and agents, have to look at the value of the other side. If you're an investor and you think real estate agents are stupid, like, you're going to lose a lot of money in your lifetime, especially when you're listing your flips. Like, people list flips with these 1% listing brokerages. They're not doing a good job. You want the best listing agent in the business because they know all the clients, they know how to run it. I mean, I list my own because I have a big team, but like, it drives me insane to see like nice properties going out with a 1% listing. We all know that the seller's cheap, like, and it never works because they don't do anything. Their photos are terrible. Their iPhone photos, it's just not professional. And then on the other end, for agents need to look at investors at, wow, how much can a really good investor add to my business? A lot. Remember this, 4 flips a year is not a lot for like a regular flipper. That's 1 a quarter. That's 8 deals for you as a real estate agent. Most real estate agents do 2 deals a year. That's the average because it's just a tough business. If you just had one investor client and all you did, you knew they had money, say they're vetted for like, X million, or they have funds, and all you did was work that one client, you would do better than probably 98% of the real estate agents in the game with just one client, if they were a good investor who you could rely on and you built a great relationship. And that's where both sides forget, everything's about relationships. The people who don't value the relationships they build, end up doing a lot of business by themselves and making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. And it's not near as fun to do it by yourself. Whether you make money or not, it's definitely more fun to, do business with other people, do business with like-minded people, and make money together.
Absolutely.
Well, Jonathan, I appreciate your time. I had a blast chatting with you. Is there anything else you want to leave with our guests for final note?
No, probably best places to find me on Instagram and most socials. You'll find Instagram and TikTok. You'll find me at Trust Greene. Greene has an E at the end. On YouTube, I have a ton of investor content. It's Jonathan Greene RE on YouTube. And then if anybody's interested in working with my team, we cover the whole state of New Jersey, Philadelphia and Bucks County in Pennsylvania, Elko County in Nevada, and then parts of the Catskills and Hudson in New York. It's just streamlined with a D.properties. That's the website. And I appreciate being on your podcast. I love when people listen to mine as well, which is Then in the Art of Real Estate Investing. But yeah, it was great talking to you. You're a great host. I mean, questions are important. You're getting out information for investors that can help them. And I think that's, both of our missions is help people not make the mistakes that are avoidable. Yeah,
no, I appreciate it. And I enjoy it. And I think, a big takeaway that I'll continue from it is, it's all about learning is, build these relationships. If you're an agent with investors, if you're investors with agents, vet them, build them, and grow your business with that side. So I appreciate it. Everybody go check out your podcast as well.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, you have a good one. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Brandon.